Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope everyone's having I think I hit the button wrong. I think we're still live. There we go. Sorry, I thought I hit the wrong button there. Oh. Straighten things up. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday. My name's Tony. Welcome to Under the Hood, where we're live every Thursday at 3 o'clock to answer your car questions. So if you have any car questions, go ahead and comment them now, and I'll get to them here in a little bit. And if you're not watching this live, still comment, and I'll answer them live next week or in the comments section. So today, I'm going to talk about oil change. You may be interested and maybe want to do it yourself. I'm going to show you the right way to do it, or how we do it here at Auto Tech Service. Or you may just be interested in how it's done, or how a repair shop does an oil change, what they check for. The first step I would recommend is knowing how much oil your car takes, what kind of oil your car takes, which hopefully you already know, and go to the parts store and pick up those parts. And what you would need is oil to start off with. Make sure you know what brand you like. We'll kind of talk about some special oils probably at the end. So make sure you have the right weight and the right quantity. Next would be an oil filter, because we're going to lube, oil, and filter change. And one thing I like is to pick up, and I'll show you on the car when we do an actual oil change, is a gasket for the drain plug. Because the last thing you want is your car with no oil in it, apart, and now all of a sudden you have to run back to the parts store because you either have the wrong filter, or you need another part. You may have to take an Uber if you don't have anyone else to help you, and just waste a whole bunch of time. So those are a couple tips. To find out what kind of oil your car takes, I would, of course, look in your owner's manual. You can also research it on the internet. Most parts stores should be able to tell you. Now, what I get on the phone, especially when people are pricing car repair over the phone, is I ask them questions. They typically kind of know the year of their car and their make, but they typically never know what size engine they have. So if you are going to a parts store and you're unsure of what engine you have and what model and make, I would and you should have it already in your glove box, is your insurance card, and on there we'll have your VIN number. So you should be able to show your parts place, that number, and they should be able to get you the right filter and the right oil for your vehicle. So that would be the first step. Then, of course, depending on the vehicle you have, if you have an SUV or truck, you may be able to get underneath it to do these repairs. And if you have a car, you're probably going to have to jack it up and put it under jack stands. So if you are doing that, make sure you're comfortable with getting it on jack stands. I want you to be safe. The last thing I want is that car to be falling over on you, and that's not worth saving, $20 over an oil change place and buying the oil yourself. Typical oil change, you're going to spend around $20 to $25 depending on the oil, and that's just a regular synthetic blend. So most places are going to charge around $40, $43. So, unless you really like working on cars yourself, especially in this cold weather, it may be worth the extra money to take it to a professional and let them do the oil change, and also look over the vehicle completely. So we have the car racked. Now that it's cold weather, I like to start up a car and let it run for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Allow that oil to thin up a little bit. So when we pull the drain plug, it comes out fairly fast, and we drain a lot of the oil out of it. If it's cold, it may not get all the oil out of it completely. So I have on this vehicle already started up and warmed it up, and it's racked. So I'm going to turn the camera over here, and we'll get under the vehicle. So as we're looking at the vehicle, we need to find the oil drain plug. And to do so, we need to determine where the transmission is and where the engine is. We've seen it many times. People have gotten their car towed in saying, I pulled the wrong plug. So on this car, I can tell you the transmission's on this side because we have the axles going into it. The engine's on this side because we have drive belts. It has a plug also, so you could think you're draining the engine oil, but you're actually draining the trans fluid. So on this car, we have our oil drain plug right here on our oil pan. So let me see if I can't get a good view from you guys here, and try not to make you want to be sure you're using the right size tools for this. So on this car, I have a 13 millimeter or a 14, and we're going to loosen it. And where I'm standing is not the position you want to be, because when that oil comes out, it's going to go this way. So you want to be kind of standing away from it while you loosen up the plug. Now some of these are tight, which this one's going to be, and you may have to wrench it out all the way. And the reason is this one has a seal on it. This one uses a metal seal, which I'll show you here in a few. And you'll have your drain bucket, and we'll just let the oil drain out, as exciting as that is. And this is the perfect time to look at the drain plug. As you can see on this one, we have a metal all right, so we have a metal seal here. So this one's reusable. A lot of times on our customers, we'll have the blue seals. See if I can grab one here. And it's this style right here, so you would want to replace it at this point. Another good tip to do while we're watching this oil drain is to check over all the steering and suspension. Grab a wheel, see if there's anything loose. We want to check to see if maybe we have any leaks from the engine, from the transmission. Peek through the wheels, maybe we can see the brakes. I like to check the tires. This is the perfect time to look at the tires. Now that they're off the ground, we can spin them and see if we have any abnormal wear as far as needing an alignment or possibly some movement in the suspension itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this trickle out till it's almost empty. While it's doing that, let's see if we can't, I'll show you how to locate a filter. Most of the time the oil filter is going to be accessed from the bottom, and it'll be close to the oil pan. On this one, it's right behind this inner fender by the drive belts. While it's still draining, a couple tools you may need to get the oil filter off. I use these cups. They're clamp cup style. They're great. There's also the band that most people are familiar with. I have these two, and they work fantastic. They have a 3/8 drive adapters that go on them. So all you do is they slide on, and at that point we'll get a ratchet here in a few, and we'll loosen that up, then take it completely off. So as you can see at this point, it's just dribbling out. That's good enough. You're never going to get totally all the oil out of the car. But like I said, if you warm it up, you're going to get a majority of it out. Now, this pan is made out of metal. So all I've done is I've snugged it to where I can't turn it, and I'm just going to give it just a little twist. And that's all the tightness it needs. Of course, wipe up your mess. A lot of new cars have aluminum oil pans, and what you don't want is to over tighten this plug. If so, it'll strip the threads out of the oil pan, and at that point you're looking at a major repair, probably replacing the whole entire oil pan itself. We sometimes can save that. We've used some inserts, some metal inserts to take care of stripped out drain plugs. Of course, we actually use them for Fords that actually blow out the spark plugs. And we've used them for that, and we have pretty good luck. But there's also some cars that we can't use that for. And at that point, we're replacing the oil pan, which is typically a major repair. Sorry, I'm still on my microphone, and I'm trying to work around it. So now we want to loosen the oil filter. You could probably pull this inner fender off, but it's not worth it with all the little push pins. So, like I said, the claw just loosens it up. Then we don't want to spin this off all the way. We just want to spin it enough off so it starts draining the oil. It saves from being a giant mess. And while it's doing that, how to open up an oil filter. It sounds simple. There's a plastic seal to prevent debris and dust from getting in there. What you don't want to do is you just want to stick your finger in there and bust open the plastic, because what can happen is some of that plastic can get inside the filter. then all of a sudden that can hurt. It can get into the oil pump and maybe even cause a mechanical failure. So I just always grab a little screwdriver around the outside and pop it up. Then all of a sudden we can take it off. And then I grab some of this oil that's coming out of the filter, and I'm gonna just oil this ring, the sealing ring. And what that's gonna prevent is it from cutting or slipping when we install it. So it's still draining a little bit. Make sure you hold on to it tight, because if it falls out of your hand, then all of a sudden you're gonna have a giant mess on your garage floor. And a good habit to get into is every time you take off that filter, make sure the gasket's still on the old filter. If not, it can still be on this mounting surface. If you don't take it off and it's still on that surface there, and you install this filter, then it's what's called a double gasket, and it'll pour oil. So always be sure to lube the new one, make sure the old one's off. Always get a rag and wipe the sealing surface of where the new filter goes. Then we're just going to start it. All the way till it's snug. Then we're just going to give it just a twist. I always get a rag, just 1, 2 twists, and that's tight enough. You don't want to over tighten it. If you over tighten it, trying to get it off next time is going to be just about impossible. Of course, you want to clean up after yourself. You don't want to get drips in the driveway, especially since, you know, we professional here with oil changes. We don't want a customer to have to come back and say, well, since you worked on my car, I got an oil leak, now I got a stain in my driveway. So we use Brake Clean. You can get them in cans. Ours, we go through so much. We have these aerosol cans and a big drum that we use for our shop, just so we're not going through so many cans of Brake Clean. So we'll just wipe it off, and at this point we have drained the oil and have a new filter. If you ever heard the term lube, oil, and filter, that's because a long time ago, or back in the day, all of our steering components were serviceable. They had grease fittings on, so you would service or lube all the drive line. Nowadays you don't. All the ball joints are sealed. Typically they have plastic bushings in there, so they're not metal to metal back in the old days where you needed lube. So they have plastic in them for easier steering, especially with the ease of electric steering is another reason they've switched to that system. So luckily I have the privilege of having a rack, so I don't have to crawl underneath it. So we'll get under the hood. Let's see here. So at this point, I know how much oil my car takes. We have our oil cap where we're going to fill it, typically on top by the valve cover, and it's labeled as an oil can. And if you watch our last video, you'll know what that sign means. And I'll talk to you about this here in just a second. When I take this cap off, I always place it on the hood latch. And the reason for that, and I'm pouring oil in it. I'll talk to you about it, is when we get done, we want to make sure that cap is on. So if you put it where the hood striker goes, you will never forget to not put it on, because as you try to close the hood, it will not close because that cap's in the way. If you leave the cap off, it can cause check engine lights, cause lean codes. More importantly, it will spew oil everywhere as it's running. So be sure you get that cap on. And of course, be sure you're pouring the oil in the right place. Normally all the filters or all the filler caps have at least a picture of what coolant or what fluid goes there. I know for sure, this is actually my car, so I know for sure it takes 5 quarts. So we got the oil in it. The next step is to start up the vehicle. So we have oil in it. I'm not going to check it yet, but that oil filter is dry. And let's see if I can squeeze it here. Oh. So what we need to do is circulate the oil throughout the system. And what also I'm going to watch is over here, we're going to look for, let me turn this off. Over here, there's going to be the red oil light. We want to make sure that goes off. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. Red oil light's on, then it goes off. It's right next to the tire pressure light. So we know we have oil pressure. I know I have a tire pressure light on. I need to check the pressures. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet while it's been in the shop. So we let it run. No warning lights, oil lights off. Now we'll get out. Now at this point, we want to check the oil level. I typically let it sit for about 10 seconds, then check it and make sure the level's full. This car, let me grab it. I have to let this car sit for a whole lot longer. And the reason is the drain back where I fill the oil is the same place where the dipstick is at. And it's hard to get a good reading. And a lot of times I have to let this thing sit for about 20 minutes before I can actually get a perfect reading on the oil level. And that's just this Nissan's design. It's not every car. But you will check it, and let's go to the other camera. See if it'll focus it. Okay, so we got low and we got high. So if it's at the low level, between those hatches is 1 quart. So if it's low, I'm going to go ahead and fill it up till it gets to right at that H mark. You don't have to start it up again after that. It should be full. It should be fine. So if you have any questions, go ahead and comment them now. But a good rule of thumb is also make sure you know what kind of oil your car takes. A couple things you can do. I like to check my oil level before I do the oil change. And the reason is, if there's any consumption, we're underneath the car, we know there's no leak, but say it was 2 quarts low on oil, it may have some consumption. So in between oil changes, you may want to check it to add oil. If the oil is sludged, a couple products we use, and I'm not a big fan of additives on oils. So typically if there's a problem, there's a problem. But there's 3 products that I really believe that I've had success in. One is the Valvoline Max Life High Mileage. So if we have some oil consumption, this high mileage with our customers, we've seen reduction in that consumption. I haven't tried the other brands. I'm sure they still work. I know that one works, so I always use it because I can tell my customers I know for sure that's the best product that I've used. I've yet to try out other ones just because that one's worked so well. Sometimes we'll get cars in and they don't do the oil changes, and what that happens is the detergents break down in the oil and you get sludging. So sometimes we'll do a motor flush. So before we do the oil change, we'll actually open this can and dump it in the oil and let it run for about 30 minutes. That helps to break down some of the sludge. Then we'll do just a regular oil change, drain it, put the plug in, change the filter, and then fill it up with oil. This product here, we'll have some cars that maybe with the consumption, we'll actually use this in conjunction with the Valvoline Max Life, or if there's some engine noise. It's called Engine Restore. I've had cars with lifter noises, and we've used this product, and they've gone away. So, I've seen it help with oil consumption too. Normally, if there's an issue with consumption or noise, some of these treatments may or may not work, but it's worth a try. It's kind of like having a disease, and you go to the doctor. Before they just put a new heart in you, they may try different kind of medicines or treatments to help you with that. And that's what we kind of do here at Autotech. So I appreciate everyone watching. If you have questions about oil changes or oil, feel free to comment them now. I'll answer them live next week. If you have any topics you'd like to discuss in the upcoming weeks, of course, just let me know. And until then, happy Valentine's Day, and we'll see you guys next week. Drive safe. Bye.